For the past few decades, Subaru has been enjoying a plethora of success here in America, especially when it comes to sales with younger buyers. However, one area where the company has been slowly lacking have been full electric vehicles. However, that's about to change because today, Subaru has brought me out to about an hour north of Phoenix to this lake to test out this. This is the brand new 2023 Solterra. It's built off of a dedicated all-electric platform. It comes standard, of course, with the company's symmetrical all-wheel drive system, and Subaru says you should be able to go over 220 miles on a full charge. So if you guys have been looking to buy a dedicated electric vehicle and you also want a Subaru, how does the brand new 2023 Solterra stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So as we talk about the exterior styling of the brand new Solterra, first of all, it wouldn't be a Subaru program if I didn't get the vehicle a little bit dirty. So I apologize that it's a little bit dusty. However, Subaru probably wants me to show you the vehicle with dust. This particular one that I'm showing you is the fully loaded touring version that offers this really interesting kind of cool mist gray exterior color. I can't remember what the color name is off the top of my head. But as you guys know, you guys should know actually that this is built off of the same platform as Toyota's bZ4X. So Subaru does make some styling changes to the Solterra to kind of give it a more Subaru look. The one that's going to pop out the most is obviously the front fascia. You have that hexagonal grille that Subarus are known for. However, obviously it doesn't need any actual openings, but it has the overall shape with the Subaru logo. If you guys are also noticing right here, there is the front camera system because this is the first Subaru ever to get a full 360 camera. Now that comes from Toyota because the infotainment system is all Toyota along with the technology in the vehicle. The headlights you can see are pretty similar to the bZ4X. There's a full LED headlight, LED daytime running light, LED turn signal, except the LED daytime running light is a C shape, which is very Subaru-esque. The fog lights down here are unique to the Solterra. The bZ4X does not offer fog lights. You get those LED fog lights when you go for the limited trims and up. There are 3 trims available: premium, limited, and this touring grade. Of course, you also have all the cladding. The one thing about this car and Subarus in general, there's a ton of cladding around this vehicle, which is good if you plan to go off-roading a lot. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think of the cladding. If you hate the look of that, you may want to consider a darker color as opposed to this gray. There are some nice details here. For example, the aerodynamics of the car. There's actually a functional air intake right here that allows air to kind of come over the front wheel of the vehicle. That allows Subaru to get a 0.28 coefficient of drag, which is again very important for an electric vehicle. And then when you look at the side profile of this vehicle, it's about 184.6 inches long. It's about 2 inches longer versus Subaru's Forester. Its wheelbase is long, 112.2 inches. It isn't quite as long as what you're going to find from the Hyundai Ioniq5, the Mustang Mach E, but this is a little bit longer versus the ID.4. A Tesla Model Y is also a little bit longer than this vehicle, but you can see Subaru goes with a more traditional SUV look, and they're also touting up 8.3 inches of ground clearance. That's going to give us, of course, the most ground clearance in the segment by nearly 2 inches actually when you look at some of the competition. Now, I want to show you guys the wheel options really quick because Subaru offers up to a 20-inch wheel, an 18-inch wheel is standard. These are the 20s that you get riding on 235/50 series tires. Now, I wouldn't recommend these if you are planning to do significant off-roading. I do like the look of the wheel with this kind of 5-spoke design. The bZ4X has the exact same wheel. You can see more of that cladding, which it's just a little too much here. I don't like how it kind of blends in with the overall headlight. The charge port door is over here. The Touring gets you black painted mirrors, and you also have the black roof rails. A panoramic glass roof is also included if you go for the Touring models and up. There's just a standard looking door handle here, so Subaru doesn't do anything kind of quirky or different with the actual door handles. And then looking at the rear of the vehicle, I actually think it looks more like a Toyota from the back here. I see some Subaru styling elements in the front, although the taillights are slightly different because they have that C shape that they also mimic on the front. You have an LED turn signal, full LED taillights with kind of like almost a full-length design, although this area right here is just black. There is a lot of badging on the back here, however. I think Subaru went a little too crazy with the badging. Like, for example, you don't really need this badging over here, and then the fact that there's also a large EV badge here that you also see on the side, I think that's a little bit too much. Over here, you can't see it now, but this is actually a gray plastic bumper here with parking sensors. This is again going to be nice if you have stuff that you're putting in here or you have a pet trying to get in and out of the vehicle. It's not going to scratch up your paintwork, which is definitely nice. And then opening up the cargo area, Subaru didn't have full final figures just yet, but they did say with the second row seat up, you have about 30 cubic feet of space. That matches the cubic feet that you get from an ID.4, from a Mustang Mach E, from like a Tesla Model Y. You can obviously expand those seats down to give you more space, which they didn't actually give us the final figures with the seats expanded. There is some underfloor storage over here, which is nice. However, if you guys were hoping to find a temporary spare tire or full-size spare tire, that's something that Subaru is not going to offer, at least not initially, but perhaps maybe the dealer may add that later on. So now that we've talked about the exterior of the Solterra, let's go ahead and move into the interior of this vehicle. Now, first thing I want to show you guys, here is the key fob for the Solterra. You can see this is clearly a Toyota key fob with the Subaru logo on it instead of the Toyota logo. It's a nice key. You even have remote start from the fob. You can also access the car through a new app called Solterra Connect, which is again a version of Toyota's connected services app. It's actually going to be different versus the Subaru Starlink app that current Subaru owners use, because remember, the infotainment system on this car is all Toyota. Now, as I open the door and take a look at the inside, you can see this particular one here has the black interior. This is the touring model, which includes a 10-way power driver's seat with 2-way lumbar and 2-person memory. The passenger seat is just a manual, but it does offer height adjustment, which is nice. You can also get kind of a gray and a blue Startex interior. This is, again, a Startex material. These seats look like they were lifted off of a Toyota. I much prefer the lighter interior color option, but this black interior obviously is going to be more classic, and the interior certainly looks a lot more interesting and modern versus a lot of current Subaru products. You can see the door panel here has a soft touch injection molded plastic. On the upper portion, you have some kind of like aluminum look trim, lots of piano black plastic, a more soft touch padded area over here. And then the Subaru, you can see, includes a Harman Kardon premium stereo. Now, I did crank it up earlier and it sounds good. I don't know how many speakers or how many watts it has, but I believe it's going to be different versus the Toyota, which is going to use obviously a JBL sound system. Now, getting inside the Solterra is nice because of that 8.3 inches of ground clearance. You definitely have a higher step-in position, which is going to be what a lot of SUV buyers are looking for. As I get in and shut the door has a nice solid sounding thunk, which again gives you that impression of quality. Now, getting inside, if you want to start the vehicle up, the power button is right here where you'd expect it to be. It's not even blocked by the steering wheel, which is nice. Pushing the button, you can actually hear that is a Subaru chime. So I'm really happy to hear that Subaru actually went and replaced the Toyota chime. You can see it even says Subaru there. It said Solterra there on the upper screen. This is a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen, which I guess they call it Solterra Connect. This is, again, as it populates, it has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and this is the same newer system that we find in Toyota's products like the new Tundra, the new Lexus NX, of course, has it. The BZ4X is going to have this system. And then up here you can see there's a 7-inch helper screen for the instrument panel, which is definitely nice to see as well. This is kind of placed really far back to where it kind of mimics a heads-up display, but it's not quite a heads-up display, obviously. This little pod here makes it look a little bit more futuristic, almost like spaceshipy, but it looks very strange from this angle here. And you can see as I adjust the steering wheel, it's got this massive panel here that keeps moving around. There's even like some interesting vinyl material here that just looks kind of cheap. There's also an area here where you can go slightly underneath it. This is going to probably be a pain to clean. This area here I don't think was necessary, but I guess Subaru and Toyota did it again for that kind of futuristic look. The steering wheel, you can see, is a new steering wheel design. This is clearly a Toyota wheel with a Subaru badge on it. The horn sounds pretty typical from what I expect a vehicle of this size. You can see a lot of the switchgear, all of it is Toyota. The windshield wiper and the turn signal stalks are all Toyota. The paddle shifters, the materials are all Toyota. Toyota essentially does all of the manufacturing for this car, while Subaru says that they split it down 50-50 in terms of the actual development of the vehicle. But because Toyota has the manufacturing capacity, they wanted to let Toyota handle that as opposed to Subaru handling that. Now, looking at the dashboard, you can see soft touch material here, where this is actually like a fabric material. It is slightly padded again. It has a texturized look. It certainly looks interesting. The dash is expansive, and you can see there's a massive black panel here. This screen looks good. It's kind of tablet style, although I do wish that they kind of went a little bit further out from the borders or away from that to give you a little bit more of a modern look to it, which again, it looks pretty nice as it is. You have a lot of touch sensitive buttons. You have heated and ventilated seats, which have an automatic function. Heated steering wheel with an automatic function. You have dual zone climate control, a heated windshield. Again, all of this looks very Toyota, and especially when you push this view button here, you can see this is the first Subaru ever with a 360-degree perimeter scan full 360 camera. No other Subaru has this because it's a Toyota system. So that's something, again, to keep in mind. You can see the graphics aren't the best in the class, but Toyota has really upped their game, so Subaru is clearly benefiting from that. Once I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your full top-down 360 camera. It has front and rear parking sensors. It has automatic parallel parking and perpendicular parking. So again, all of that is new technology on Subarus, which they've never had before. Over here you can see buttons for your one pedal drive. They call it S pedal drive, which you can kind of turn on and off. You can also use the paddles here to control the regen braking. I'll talk about that as we go into the test drive. This is an interesting gear selector because when I first got into it, I wanted to kind of push or move this entire unit, but it's actually the chrome ring or the rubber ring that moves. You push down, turn it to the left to go to reverse, turn it to the right to go to drive, push it down to go to neutral, and then push P for park. And then, of course, you have the paddles for the regen braking. There's also more piano black plastic trim over here. The X mode and the drive mode buttons here, you can see, push that, you can cycle between a power, an eco, and just a normal setting. I actually think that the graphics could be more interesting when you push this button, but I believe this is, again, Subaru added this. They also added, of course, the X mode function, which if you put it into the X mode, let me take it off the one pedal drive, push this button, you can see there's dual mode X mode with a third mode called grip control. They didn't want to call it triple X mode because that doesn't sound appropriate and car-like, but push that, you can go to a deep snow and mud, a snow dirt, and then if you toggle this little switch, Subaru will allow you to adjust the grip control when you're in the actual dual mode X mode, which is an interesting addition, which is all software based because the all-wheel drive system in this car is certainly a lot different versus gas-powered Subarus. I do like how this is kind of laid out, and then down here you can see there's a nice little storage area with 2 USB-C charging ports. Open this up, you can see there is a wireless phone charging pad right here for your cell phone, and what's really interesting is you can see that's actually see-through. That I didn't even notice until I had my phone in there. That's a really cool feature, very futuristic, very modern, pretty cool. I also like the cup holders where it's in a great spot right here. Open this up, you can see decent sized center console where it's stamped, or where it's lined with felt in there. There's no power outlets, nice padded armrest over here, which is nice. I've been sitting in these seats pretty much for the past couple of hours, and they are comfortable and supportive. They're heated and cooled on the touring trim. The touring trim is the only one that gets ventilated seats, so the Korean twins are no longer the only ones in the segment that offer cooled seats. Remember, you can't get cooled seats on the Mach E or a Tesla Model Y or Volkswagen ID.4. So keep that in mind. Above me, you can see the rearview mirror. There's a digital rearview mirror, which is also taken from Toyota. I really like the digital aspect, especially if you've got stuff in the back of this car. The one thing the Solterra is missing is a glove box, and Subaru just said that it doesn't have a glove box because of the packaging. I'm not entirely sure why. I guess they had to put something in the dash there that required them to take away the glove box. At least there's lots of storage over here, decent storage over here, but you're going to be putting stuff in the glove box in here instead, and it could be bigger. You have some storage cubbies in the door pockets and in the grab handle over here. And then if you open this up, you can see push that button along with the LED cabin lighting. There is a full pano glass roof, although there's this pillar here that takes away some of the openness. This does not open, however, it's just a glass roof. It's included on the limited trims and up. So if you guys want an open sunroof, only the Kia EV6 offers that. And in terms of ambient lighting, Subaru said there was a little bit, although I don't have this vehicle at night to show you that, but overall the cabin with its Toyota connected audio information, which again works fairly well. I've shown you this before in other Toyota products, but most of you are just going to use the wireless CarPlay. Looks modern. It's so different from other Subarus that I imagine a lot of Subaru owners are going to get in this and be very, very confused. But this is a much better system than what Subaru has, so I'm glad to see that the company actually borrowed the right parts from this partnership with Toyota. Taking a look at the back seat of the Solterra, the company said that they didn't have actual legroom figures ready just yet. However, they are claiming this will have the most spacious back seat in the segment. So as you can see, as I open the door here, I can tell that legroom is plentiful. I'm only 5'7", so I'm not the tallest, but you can see the seat backs, they fold down in a 60-40 manner, and they fold down almost completely flat, which is nice. You can also recline the seat if you'd like to get a little bit of a recline, which is definitely a nice feature. So again, the back seat has the room that many Americans are looking for. Now getting back here, you can see, I think it actually has probably over 39 inches of legroom, which is comparable to the last Tesla Model Y, the Volkswagen ID.4 that I was in. As I get in and shut the door, you can see materials quality back here is the same as the front. You have a soft touch injection molded plastic, soft touch over here. I apologize for all the dust back here. We've been driving this vehicle off-road. You have 2 storage pockets back here. The touring model includes heated rear seats with 3 levels, 2 USB-C charging ports, and AC vents back here, which is definitely nice. The floor is almost completely flat. There's a slight hump over here. No AC power charging ports over here, which some competitors certainly do offer. fold this down, you can see there's an armrest here with 2 cup holders, a little bit more storage, and then there's also some LED lighting back here. I am noticing the roof panel doesn't go completely all the way back, and because of that, the headroom here is a little bit compromised. I'm not the tallest individual, but I did notice that my head was getting kind of close to the ceiling, but at least there is plenty of headroom. There's great visibility. There's features back here that I would like to see, although I would like to see Subaru also add a regular 3-prong or 2-prong household outlet. So with any EV, the million-dollar question is there a frunk? And this is where Subaru and Toyota sadly do not give us a frunk. The reason being, the company says, is because they didn't want to have to package a frunk. If they packaged a frunk, they'd have to extend the front overhang. It would give it less off-road capability. It would give it more of a less ideal approach angle for off-roading. So instead, you just have the motor and a bunch of wires and fluids and cables. But since I'm under here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain of this vehicle. It's going to come standard, of course, with 2 electric motors. Subaru calls them Star Drive. That's just their branding. It offers up dual motor all-wheel drive, which all-wheel drive, of course, is standard. That's different versus the Toyota. The Toyota comes standard with front-wheel drive, and all-wheel drive is optional. It offers up 215 horsepower and 249 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers don't look good on paper, especially when you look at the all-wheel drive ID.4, which offers 295 horsepower. A Mustang Mach E offers like 346 horsepower. A Tesla has even more power. So we'll keep an open mind when we get this vehicle out on the road to drive. Now, of course, it's all fed through a 72.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack that's going to be lined in the floor because this is a skateboard platform. Subaru says that's the gross capacity. They didn't actually disclose what the net capacity is or the usable capacity, but that battery pack is about on par for the segment. It all goes out through a 1-speed reduction gear transmission, and Subaru, of course, brands it with symmetrical all-wheel drive. Although it is going to be different, of course, versus other Subarus because it has twin independent electric motors. It's not going to be the traditional gas-powered Subaru. It does offer a dual-function X mode with like a grip control feature. So we'll talk about that later on in the driving scene. In terms of range, that's always a great question as well. Subaru just says for now 220 plus miles on a full charge. However, when this video goes live, we're going to have the actual figure that the EPA just certified. Right now, we actually don't have that available, which the range figures trail those from what you're going to find from the Mustang Mach E or the Volkswagen ID.4. Not by much, but we'll talk about that, of course, later on during the driving scene. In terms of towing, this is where the Solterra kind of falls short. It doesn't actually recommend to tow. Subaru says you can't tow with this vehicle, but you can get an activity mount on the back for you if you guys want to mount a bike rack to it. So that's something that Subaru says most owners are going to want to do versus actual towing. And in terms of curb weight, this is a lighter vehicle versus a lot of the competition. Subaru says this car weighs in at around 4,300 pounds. This one here is a little bit more, but it does make it about 400 to 500 pounds lighter versus most of the competition. Now, of course, you guys are probably wondering what's the deal with charging. Well, Subaru puts the charge port door over here on the driver's side on the front fender. I don't like the EV badge here. I think that's a little bit excessive. It looks a little tacky, but push that, it opens up manually, and you can see it comes standard, of course, with J1772 plug and, of course, a combination DC fast charging port. This vehicle comes with a 6.6 kilowatt hour onboard charger, which means it'll probably take about 10 hours to charge this vehicle on a level 2 from your home on a 32 amp circuit. In terms of DC fast charging, this is where the Solterra is falling behind. Subaru says it only can charge at up to 100 kilowatt hours, which is pretty slow. It's about half the speed versus what I was expecting them to do. So basically what it means, you can go from 15 to 80% charge in about 56 minutes. Now, to keep the competition in mind, most will do it in about 30 minutes, and the fastest cars like the Hyundai Ioniq, that'll do it in about 18 minutes. So Subaru definitely is falling behind there, but they did say, you know, for most people, they're going to be charging at home, so it's really only going to be a problem out on road trips. We'll keep an open mind, and we're going to be doing full or more extensive range testing when we do get this vehicle back home for a week to drive. So here we are finally driving the brand new 2023 Subaru Solterra, and I'm joined, of course, by Alex from Alex on Autos. You guys have probably seen his channel before.
Scratching off our validation sticker for the park.
Oh yes, that's right, because we're heading to a lunch spot we're gonna have a picnic at, and it's probably at an off-road park, knowing Subaru. But this is a huge deal for Subaru because, as you guys know, this is their all-electric, dedicated electric vehicle. And we have about, I think, 90 or 80% state of charge. I'm gonna go ahead and do a quick 0 to 60. The car's in power mode. Remember, all-wheel drive is standard. It actually feels pretty quick off the line there. I'm surprised. Not bad. We got 0 to 60 in 6.02 there, but it is going slightly downhill. So that is a little bit gonna skew the numbers a tad. We actually did a run earlier before we started filming, and we got 6.2, 6.3. Subaru actually claimed 6.5 seconds, which is not bad considering, considering this car only has 215 horsepower and 249 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
Those numbers trail the competition. Like the all-wheel drive ID.4 is 295. A Mach E is like 350 almost, and then you just bought an EV6 GT line, which is 320.
Right. But I think it demonstrates why some EV car companies out there aren't actually going to give us horsepower numbers, because it doesn't translate like it does in a regular car to 0 to 60 performance.
Right. So the numbers on this car look horrible on paper, but put my foot down here, it feels pretty peppy. There is a slight delay. Alex hasn't had a chance to drive it yet. We're going to swap later on, and he's going to drive it. But there is a slight delay when your foot goes to the floor, and then when it gives you full power. But it does give you that instantaneous torque, that shove that you want to get from an electric vehicle. And remember, this is built off of Toyota's platform, although Subaru calls it their Subaru Global platform. And it feels nice. The car has a really low center of gravity. They actually mentioned it was 3.5 inches lower than a Forester, which this car is about the same size. We've got dual motors on the front and rear axle. And the car itself is also lighter versus a lot of the competition. 4,300 pounds, this car is what it weighs.
500 pounds lighter than a Mach E.
That's shocking to me. And you definitely feel that weight loss in this car. Like as we start going around these corners here, I'm noticing the steering is relatively quick, but it's numb. I mean, but this isn't designed to be a sporty car. But because of that low center of gravity, the big 20-inch wheels, although the tires could be a little bit wider.
It could be.
Yeah.
But then, with it's 235 with tires, 500 pounds less than a Mach E with 225s. So,
Yeah, no, I'm genuinely surprised. This car, it performs a lot better out on the road, so that's a nice surprise for me. In terms of the way it drives, however, Subaru claims that they gave this car a feel so it feels like a Subaru.
Yeah.
To me, it feels like I'm driving a Toyota RAV4 Prime that has a much bigger battery pack and more electric only acceleration, much quicker acceleration, electric only. It's not bad. It's definitely leaning more toward comfort. The visibility in here, I think, isn't typical Subaru also. It doesn't feel quite as open and airy like with the low dash because of this interesting design to the instrument panel over here and the way the dash is so expansive out to the front. So it definitely feels like I'm driving a Toyota, which isn't a bad thing. Remember, Toyota and Subaru co-developed this car, although Toyota handles mostly the manufacturing.
Right.
Subaru claims that they split it 50-50 for the development.
And that makes sense because Toyota owns 20% of Subaru, of course.
Yep, so it's a good thing that the companies work together, although we don't have final pricing just yet for this car. And I also want to point out the range. When we first got into this car, as of this filming, we don't have the final EPA numbers. Subaru will let us know, of course, by the time this video is posted. But it was showing 234 miles on a full charge. They said 220 plus. That number seems all right. Actually, that's what my Mach E shows on a full charge. And then your EV6, what is it showing on a full charge?
My EV6 on a full charge actually shows 300.
300, okay.
It actually is a little bit more efficient than I had expected. But my Mach E, the way I had been driving it before it left, it typically showed 215 on a full charge.
Okay.
So it depends on your driving style.
Right, so this is definitely, I feel like it's more efficient than the Mach E, this car, because it has a much smaller battery pack and it's able to do that. Although we've been
surprised,
well, we've been averaging 2.4 or 2.3 to 2.4 miles per kilowatt. That's not great, but this is a really early press drive of a pre-production car.
We have been going up in elevation quite a lot here too.
Yes.
So that doesn't help.
But definitely, as I noticed, just going around these twisty roads, the car feels really nice. It feels well planted, really well balanced. It feels like, a much more substantial car than any other Subaru SUV that I've driven, because
it feels like the kind of car that's more than the sum of its parts. Like, don't believe your lying eyes, I guess, on paper when you're looking at that spec sheet, because it definitely feels better than the specs indicated. I was prepared to be disappointed, and I'm actually surprised so far.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm disappointed with is when I put my foot down, I wish it was a little faster in terms of top end, but for somebody who's coming from a Forester, which takes 9 seconds to get to 60, it's dreadfully slow, this is a huge upgrade from that.
Yet if we go to a complete stop here, how long does it take? Like, what speed are we going when that power gauge shows 100%? Because if we're in an ID.4 all-wheel drive, you don't get all 300-something horsepower until you're going almost 40 miles an hour.
Interesting. So we came to a stop here. I'll just floor it.
So we're close, like 820. Oh, like 25. That's
okay.
probably why
full
it's
power
faster.
there.
Yeah, because we get all that 218 horsepower. At the point where ID.4 all-wheel drive is probably not much more than that, I would guess.
Right, and honestly, it kept giving us full power all the way up to like 70 miles an hour almost. So like that's pretty impressive. And I'm actually shocked. Now, the one thing I do want to talk about quickly is the one-pedal drive feature in this car, which Subaru says it has somewhat of one-pedal drive. There's actually a button here called S pedal mode or S mode or something like that. This is with it on right now. You can feel it's slowing down. This is probably...
But it doesn't stop you, right?
Doesn't come to a full stop, although it's slowing down right here. Although we are still, it's kind of going slightly uphill.
What does it do? Oh, it just creeps.
Yeah, I guess it's continuing. Yeah, it does.
Takes you to 2 mile an hour creep.
Although now that we're going on this uphill, it's slowing down there. But that's probably enough regen braking that's going to satisfy somebody who's never had an EV before. Because I know, Alex, you don't like one pedal drive.
I hate one pedal drive.
I like one pedal drive.
Because my right foot is capable of going here to here, and I can move it that 2 inches.
See,
I want to be in control.
I understand that, but I guess when you get used to it, the laziness factor comes in. I'm like, I don't feel like stepping on the brake. I just want the car to step on the brake for me. Okay.
It's also being a passenger in any EV with one pedal drive. The passenger always is going, what on earth is wrong with the driver? Because it's never as smooth as that same person if you just turn it off and have them drive. So from the driver's perspective, yeah, it's not bad, but they're passengers in your car too now and then. Think of their necks.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It takes getting used to, and if somebody is who gets car sick pretty easily, they're not going to like that. It's sitting in the passenger seat, so they'll have to kind of get used to that. But I mean, overall, we took it out on the highway earlier. The ride quality is good. It's got a comfortable ride quality. It's also pretty quiet in here as well.
It is much quieter than I expected.
Right,
it's probably the quietest Subaru.
Right, because Subaru is not known for interior quietness, so that's definitely a good thing for those of you who must have an electric car and must have a Subaru. This is kind of taking them to the next level. And in terms of the technology, I mean, I love the big screen here. This instrument panel definitely takes some getting used to.
Yeah, what do you think about that? You haven't seen it from the passenger side. This view, I will text you the picture. This view is peculiar.
Yeah, so from this angle, Subaru basically told us that you have to drive with the steering positioned below it, because if you try to pull it above it, it's not going to work. And I think in Japan, Toyota had this with like a yoke steering wheel, and that probably won't. That obviously isn't here in America, but you would have a much clearer view, because where I have the steering wheel set, it's still cutting off the lower end. And I do kind of wish that gauge cluster was a little larger. It's a little small. It almost
would be fine if it was closer.
Yeah, I think it almost seems like they're trying to replace a heads-up display with it, like, because that's kind of in between. It's in between a heads-up display and an actual instrument panel. I do wish that they showed a battery percentage amount. They have this little bar that just shows a blue color on how much is left, but I'd like to see like 80%, 90%, something like that. But it's something to get used to, but it's also very Toyota. It just feels like I'm driving a Toyota with a Subaru badge here and the Harman Kardon stereo in this car. But that's not a bad thing. It definitely feels like next gen in terms of tech.
Watch out, they're rocks. Pop a tire.
Although we have much bigger tires. I was driving a Taycan GTS and there was a rock and I ran over it and I got a flat. But yeah, we're actually going to take this to an off-road course later, because we have 8.3 inches of ground clearance, which is the most in the non-premium EV segment.
A lot, actually.
A lot, actually, almost 2 inches more, I think, than the next highest, which is an ID.4 all-wheel drive.
Yeah, and EV6, Ioniq5 are 6.1.
Right.
So they're way down there.
Yeah, so if you actually want some off-road capability and you don't want to have to worry about scraping, this is the one you're going to get. But out on the road,
I was surprised the expensive I-Pace from Jaguar with the air suspension, it only goes up to 7.3, so it's still below this.
Wow, interesting. Okay, well,
if you want more, you're going to need a Lightning, a Rivian, or a Hummer,
which is significantly more expensive, which we still don't have final pricing yet on this. But in terms of on-road, this drives really nice, but we'll take it out on the road. We'll see what this thing is like as well. So now I've switched with Alex, and we're actually driving down this dirt road here. I wanted to show you guys really quickly what the, I guess, off-road capability is of the Solterra. Now, first of all, this isn't really true off-roading, but this is probably what the majority of Solterra owners are probably going to do. They're going to actually just drive this vehicle on a dirt road like this, and you can really get a feel for the ground clearance. I probably wouldn't want to drive this car on the 50 series tires on roads like this, because there are some pretty good rocks. But the X mode system right here, you can engage, which right now we're going a little too fast. It does offer 2 different modes. So Alex, if you will happily slow down a little bit there. So there's a snow dirt, and then there's a deep snow and mud, and then there's also the grip control.
So it's triple X mode.
Triple X mode, but Subaru doesn't want to call us that, which is kind of similar to Toyota's off-road cruise control, their crawl control. Yep. But this is all pretty much software stuff. I mean, we had it on some pretty interesting pavement earlier, and it does a pretty good job, and we only really scraped it once. So I think that for what this car offers, it's probably going to be more than capable of what owners are going to put it through. And if you are looking for the most capable off-road electric SUV, this and the Toyota could very well be it.
Yeah. And the second time we thought we scraped it, it turned out to be a jet.
Yeah, Alex seriously thought he popped the tire, but luckily it wasn't air rushing out of the tire. It was just a plane above us. So after spending the day driving the brand new 2023 Subaru Solterra, I was basically coming into this video with an open mind because on paper, the specs of this car don't look good. Just like the Toyota BZ4X, which I should be driving later this month, the Solterra actually feels a lot nicer out on the road. As you guys saw, the driving dynamics of this car are quite nice. We got 0 to 60 in around 6.2 seconds, which is faster versus Subaru's 6.5 second claim. It has a really nice, comfortable ride quality, a quiet interior. It has looks that are definitely unique, but I think it looks a little bit more like a Toyota vehicle. But really what surprised me is the off-road capability of this car. If you guys are actually looking for an electric vehicle that can actually go off-roading because it offers decent ground clearance and a good all-wheel drive system, the Solterra and maybe even the BZ4X are going to be the two vehicles to get. In terms of the interior, the tech also works pretty nicely. The cooled seats are a nice touch. I also like the 12-inch display, the 12.3-inch display. It's all a Toyota infotainment system because Subaru's, again, isn't quite as good as Toyota's newest system. So basically, this car has all the tech that you could want, all the space that you can want. It just doesn't have the performance that I was looking for if you were looking for a fast EV like a Model 3 or a Model Y Performance or a Mach E GT. Hopefully Subaru is working on perhaps an STI version of this car, but I was surprised because 215 horsepower isn't a lot on paper, but it's surprisingly quick out on the road. And when I finally get this vehicle out for a week to test, I'll be able to test out to see what the actual real world range is, which by the way, this car does have a heat pump, which is going to allow you to get better range out in those colder climates. Now, speaking of which, if you guys are looking to purchase the Solterra, this is where it's going to be a problem, especially if you guys have been waiting a long time for a Subaru electric SUV. Subaru says they're only going to be importing about 6,500 for the US for the model year 2022 or 2023. The first model year is going to be very, very scarce to find these vehicles. In fact, Subaru had a reservation system available, but it's all sold out. So if you're going to want one of these for the first model year, you're going to have to go to a dealer and try to get lucky to find one. And as of this filming, Subaru has not announced final pricing just yet of this car. I'm going to estimate it's going to start in the low $40,000 range. Now, if Subaru does manage to meet that price, that's going to be before the $7,500 federal tax credit. It could mean this is the least expensive long-range all-wheel drive SUV out there, which at the moment, currently, it's the Volkswagen ID.4, which is around $45,000. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think the price is going to be. Subaru says they're going to have final pricing available probably next month. This vehicle will be starting to show up at your local Subaru dealership by May or June of this year. And again, there's only going to be about 6,500 of them coming to the US for the first model year. So if you want one, you better hurry up to your Subaru dealership and keep your fingers crossed and get lucky because this is going to be kind of a scarce find, of course, with all the production delays, the chip shortages, of course. But I think that Subaru has delivered a really interesting EV that gives you the off-road capability that you don't typically find in this segment. And although it does have a couple of issues that I think Subaru needs to address, it's a really nice addition in this ever-growing electric SUV space. With all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2023 Subaru Solterra. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.